time for our Astroworld update. New things keep coming out all the time. Travis Scott, Drake, Apple, and Live Nation facing new $2 billion Astroworld lawsuit. A massive new lawsuit seeking $2 billion in damages from Travis Scott, Drake, Live Nation, Apple, and others has been filed on behalf of 282 plaintiffs linked to the deadly Astroworld tragedy that claimed the lives of 10 people in Houston. The new complaint from lawyer Thomas J. Henry is the latest iteration of a fast evolving case that has been growing exponentially since it was first filed on behalf of a single concert goer.
So Christian's original lawsuit, this is an amendment. So this had been filed, and I think this was the second lawsuit that was filed against Travis Scott, Astroworld, the event promoters, many other defendants. But what the attorney has done, so Henry, he's now amended several times, and now the new amendment includes new defendants, new claims of damages, and now it's at $2 billion in the damages sought. And the attorney gave a statement, and I think this was on Thursday. He said the defendants stood to make an exorbitant amount of money off of this event, and they still chose to cut corners, cut costs, and put attendees at risk. My clients want to ensure the defendants are held responsible for their actions. They want to send the message to all performers, event organizers, and promoter that what happened at Astroworld cannot happen again. So I think part of what's kind of different about these newer lawsuits that have been filed is that we have new defendants that were added. And so, for example, in this one, we now have Apple.
Right.
And you know, we'll talk
I was kind of
about
waiting to see. I was kind of waiting for that one too, because I mean, they were broadcasting the events. They had all the angles. They were set up for it. So I was wondering what that was going to end up being.
Well, especially on this last video that we posted covering this event, and we showed a lot of footage where these kids were getting up on the platforms with the cameramen, right, who were streaming for Apple. They're working for Apple, and these kids are like screaming, you know, help us. And I think one even just said there's actually someone who is dying or dead right over there. Please stop, do something. And of course, we see that nothing was in fact done. So I guess as part of the allegation to include Apple is that Apple had set up the equipment in a certain way that made this festival incredibly dangerous, right? So we're talking about, and I feel like you kind of described this nicely when we were discussing it earlier, kind of like a T, right?
Right. So it looked like they were kind of sectioned off where it should be open so they can get out from going to exit things. There was this little wall that was set there, so they were essentially just being pushed up against a wall. There was really nowhere for a lot of them to go.
Right. So basically, you know, the event is outdoors. We know that, and whereas normally there might be little exits available, you know, around the barricade near the front of the stage, that didn't happen. That didn't exist in this scenario. And the claims are because Apple had set up their equipment and their cameras to ensure that they had the best coverage. Right. They're making a ton of money with the live streaming portion of what they did.
Sure.
So this prevented fans from being able to exit near the front of the stage or really anywhere. So as the crowd surged once the show started, as people are now getting crushed, these kids had literally nowhere to go.
Right. And we've just seen countless TikTok videos and social media clips that people were posting where they're in the midst of all that chaos, just trying to get out. And it is just, I mean, there's no other word for it, but terrifying.
Yeah, and so, you know, we saw earlier on Tuesday, there was a separate lawsuit that was filed, and this was the one that was for $750 million.
Yeah.
And this one was against Drake.
From the front to the back, we better make this motherfucker earthquake. Yeah.
You know, Travis Scott, Apple, but it also included now record labels, including Epic Records. We knew about Live Nation, and then a number of other defendants. Now, this was filed by an attorney, Tony Busby. And so he goes on and he gives a statement. He goes, when people say, Tony, how can you sue Apple TV, the record labels, and these other peripheral entities, right? So these people and entities that maybe weren't directly involved or there that night, how are you suing them? Well, I would suggest they threw in with this. They were promoting this, encouraging this, and profiting from this. It's profit over people.
That's the phrase that we're hearing a lot a lot since this whole thing. It just seems like it's profit over people, and I mean, I hear that, and I mean, I'm sure Apple wasn't expecting when they were setting up the best camera angles. They were just trying to get their footage. I don't think that they intended that they would cause obstructions or whatever. Nonetheless, so
But this
it,
goes to we've talked about, like, the policies, right? The policies for the festivals. You have to contemplate and think about this, and the attorneys are basically saying, "Too bad. It doesn't matter if you didn't intend, obviously, to sandwich people in horizontally and vertically so that they had nowhere to go. You should have thought about this," right? So that's where that liability comes from. And the attorney, Bugsby, he goes on in his statement, he was saying, no one was incentivized to stop the show. But he goes basically, if it was Travis Scott who had been hurt, or the fans were
right, right.
overcoming and getting on the stage, you better believe they would have stopped that show in 2 seconds, because now the money earner is getting hurt.
Yeah, let's say Travis rolls his ankle as he's getting hype, and I roll my ankle all the time just taking a step down the stairs. But let's say Travis Scott and getting hype and raging, rolls his ankle and he collapses for a second. The show would stop for some time so they can assess the situation if he can continue or not. And I don't know. They're just, when you see just all the video and you just see the chaos and more stuff just continuously gets released, more stuff every day is just being put on social media and reanalyzed. And it's just one of those things where you just see that how could they have not have done something? The chaos was out of control at all ends. We saw, Kylie and their daughter being escorted by VIP out safely when things were obviously getting out of hand. They saw that was going. Kylie was posting videos showing the ambulance in her social media, and all these things. Everybody was aware. Not that I blame her for anything. My point is just other people were aware of the situation and people knew what was going on, at least enough to get them out. Now, they could have just been trying to leave the concert early. I like to leave. I don't like to say to the last couple songs of a concert. Usually I will head towards the back so I can get out for parking, whatever. But they have a different situation, VIP. So, was it a matter of them being escorted out because it was just the chaos, or was it just time to go? I argue is probably the chaos because they were very aware of what was going on from their
Yeah.
standpoint.
But I think that's a good point. I've seen you guys in the comments discussing this as well. Look, it was the end of the concert. Maybe they were just leaving. Other VIPs were also just leaving. But let's talk about Kylie for a
That's my
second.
behavior.
Right? So we're seeing, kind of funny enough, that Kylie seems to be the one that is catching a lot of shrapnel. We'll talk about some of those examples of what's been happening. But interestingly enough, have we heard anything else about Drake? Right? So there was a little kind of controversy that came out with the whole him, having his outrageous party at a strip club, and
Right after
dropping
Dave, after Dave and
$1 million.
Buster's, right after the concert, and then the strip club $1 million party, and now we know that tickets are going to go on sale here in a few
For a
days
Drake concert, right?
for a Drake concert in
Yeah.
LA with Kanye. Now people have been kind of this is going to be another one of those huge concerts now that's going to be happening. I mean, everybody and their sister is going to be trying to get into the Drake Kanye show in LA for the free Larry Hoover on December 9th. So this is actually pretty close to the show's going to happen pretty soon.
Yeah,
Um,
and so far, we'll see what happens, but so far we're not hearing, obviously, this show has been canceled, and I mean, this was obviously planned. But going back to Kylie, by comparison, we heard just this week, right? So, she had a cover story with Travis Scott that was gonna be, or had been done through W
W
Magazine.
Magazine, yeah.
Yeah, and, W Magazine, of course, scrambles, pulls the story as best it could. I think what you were telling me that, maybe some of the publications made it to stores, but the online.
But the online presence for the issue is they're not going to release anything. As per their statement, they're not going to release anything from that issue digitally. So on
Yeah,
their social
because,
media presence.
again, because it includes Travis Scott, but by association, Kylie now is having some issues, and we saw this week as well, Kylie and Kendall, they were finally, promoting a store launch in Dubai
Right.
for their clothing, and of course, now Kylie's getting canceled, and how, everyone's incredibly outraged, and
Right.
not to say that, they're wrong, and maybe, because she is closely associated with Travis Scott, maybe she should be more mindful of these things. But just by comparison, I'm just kind of curious
But she
why,
has
Drake.
as of recording this, she is also, but Kylie hasn't been posting on her social media, which, you know, I've heard that she's rumored to be making like $1 million a day from her posts on social media. So not that, you know, whatever. I just think it's kind of weird sometimes when the people that aren't, she's guilt by association, I guess, but I don't know what people expected her to do as far as, I think it's more of just maybe some of the comments that were made, you know, in her thing, just saying that they had no idea. I remember like on one of our first videos when we were covering, I would just always, my opinion is just keep your mouth shut. Just like, don't like just wait and just, you know, or whatever. Or if you're saying anything, but definitely don't like try to look like you're just doing damage control for yourself. Cause that's where it comes off kind of bad, where it doesn't feel like it's insincere and it's just like, you know, real sympathy. It's more of like, she was just quick to say, we had no idea that this was going on. Like trying to, I don't know,
Yeah,
save
and
face or something.
I understand the knee-jerk reaction of wanting to say something, of course, and just being like, you know, of course, I'm sure she's horrified and, you know, everyone else in the family is horrified. But from a legal standpoint, something kind of interesting to think about, because we're going to go into and discuss now with this 2 billion, you know, lawsuit and the 750 million lawsuits being filed, that doesn't mean that's going to be the outcome. But let's talk about these numbers. When it comes to the insurance coverage, we now know that the umbrella insurance for Astroworld was for $25 million. Okay, 25 million isn't going to cut it no matter way, you know, how you slice this. And so what happens is, once the insurance coverage kind of taps out at 25 million, whoever ends up getting that amount, well, the defendants still are on the hook for
On the hook, yeah.
whatever else is awarded. So, you know, I don't know how trustworthy these websites are, but I went and just kind of out of curiosity looked at what's the net worth, you know, for Drake and Travis. And this is what I found for 2021. So Drake is estimated to have a net worth of 200 million. Okay. So then by comparison of his
That actually
potential
seems low.
liability, well,
That seems low to me for Drake. Honestly, that seems low to me for Drake.
yeah.
But,
And
you
again, I
know,
don't know the accuracy of these websites, but let's pretend that that was the case. So his net worth, right, is 200 million, because gross is obviously way more, but you spend and you mark and all the stuff.
right.
And then Travis Scott is estimated to have a net worth of 60 million, which I thought was actually higher than I expected. But I go, maybe because of the Kardashian show and his association with Kylie, and obviously he's an incredibly successful artist otherwise. So is 200 million, is 60 million gonna cover it?
Right.
No. What does
This
that
is scratching the
mean?
surface.
Well, then
Well, I would
that
imagine,
means
yeah.
potentially,
Live Nation, right?
well, we have these other defendants as far as they're the ones with the money, but it means potentially that, that could send Drake and or Travis Scott into bankruptcy if they were to have judgments come down against them and they have to, pay it out of their personal pocket. So then, let's say they, setting aside the bankruptcy issue, Live Nation, right? So Live Nation, much bigger company. We're talking now they're valued at 25 billion, right? B as in boy, billion. And then I even went a step further. Apple valued at 65 billion, and Epic Records, right? And this is owned by Sony Music, estimated to have a value of 1.7 billion. So the point just being, these are the defendants who potentially can cover this and they'll get out of it and they will survive. But what happens when you can't pay it? So what I've kind of seen, people in our comments discussing is, well, does that mean Kylie's going to be on the hook and she's going to help Travis pay for this stuff?
Why?
And from the legal standpoint, I'm going to tell you, they're not married. So it varies by state, but for
Right.
example, where we're based, when you're married, it's a community property state. And so that means that if, your partner has a judgment against them, then you're at risk of having that judgment paid by your shared earnings. So
Sure.
because, they're not married, then she's kind of insulated from any of his liability in that way.
I wonder if any thoughts that she had of marriage, maybe she wanted to do that or something. Like, Kris Jenner's like, I don't know about all that. I mean, because we've already heard the rumors that the producers are going to be editing out all the Travis Scott footage with the Kardashians season. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But yeah, no, I can't imagine, just as far as the Kardashian Jenner clan, if they are going to continue to really associate and how long they're going to keep backing Travis Scott, because it's doing damage to their brand, their association with Travis Scott. And we all know that the combined of all the Kardashian and Jenners is ridiculous as far as their money.
Well, it's funny with the Kardashians in general, they've obviously faced a lot of controversy and, issues, in the news, not just personally with the individual members, but even recently, Kanye, right? So there were some things that Kanye was in the news for and some political stuff and, unfortunately, them as a family, as a brand, they have to kinda deal with all of that. So I think to your point, right? So if the producers are like, "We are gonna try to stay so far away from this," they're cutting Travis Scott out of everything. They're having to re-edit and kind of scramble. And I can't necessarily knock them for that because otherwise they have to address the issue. They have to address the issue and take a position, either like in
Right,
support of him or
right,
or
or
what? What are
right.
they going to say? We don't support him.
No, but I mean, it's or they would just could be accused of putting it on TV to, help ratings and to boost
Right,
ratings, or
right.
just kind of, taking
Yeah.
advantage of the situation. But like, I get it. Like, if you're other producers and you're people working, with this thing and this thing happens, like, dude, you have nothing to do with Travis Scott if you're just one of these producers that's, on the Kardashian shows or just whatever. But like, now you're going to be affected because of something this guy did. So you're like, you guys got to fix this. Like, I didn't tell you guys to go to Astroworld and, rage. I don't care about that.
So something else I'm interested to see because I'm getting hints of this now in new articles that are coming out, but we're hearing now because one of the new defendants is also TriStar Sports and Entertainment Group. And we were hearing a lot about Lou Taylor and that company having to do with the Britney Spears case and whether, there was a mismanagement of her and bugging of her room and just all this pretty crazy stuff. But this is the same company that also manages the Kardashians and Travis Scott. And so as far as these other peripheral defendants that are being named, I guess kind of the accusation is we know now that Travis Scott has a history of doing these shows that are incredibly dangerous. And he's encouraging his fans to, rage and to beat each other up and to jump off of balconies. We've covered this. And so it goes, if you knew that there was a likelihood of these types of things happening, then you're, potentially responsible for knowing that and still doing this
Just being,
show.
you mean just being complacent in it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's something to that, right? We've been talking about this sometimes as it relates to other artists that are in the news right now for things that they have done, right? So, we haven't really gotten into this yet on this channel, but like Marilyn Manson, we're seeing the people on his team stepping away who have been with him,
His
for
whole
decades
career.
and
Yeah.
yes, for his entire career. So it's just kind of like the people who are that close, what do they know? What have they been hiding?
No,
And I
it's
think
a
some of
it's
that's coming
it's a
out.
weird thing that's kind of going on right now, with some of the biggest artists in hip hop right now, right? So, we you just kind of touched on the Marilyn Manson's association constantly with Kanye West, with Marilyn Manson, how his questionable stuff on
Yeah, good
Kanye
point.
Kanye with the baby, Kanye now getting involved with Drake and having this massive show over a controversial topic anyway, over some prison reform and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's just a very weird scene right now where there's just a lot of people just kind of just saying F it and going for it. And I don't know how that's going to end up shaking out. But it's crazy. And I think it's just crazy. I think it's just the timing of it is crazy. Like, it's unfortunate, not that, the Drake and, Kanye show shouldn't like take place out of sensitivity. I don't know. I'm just saying like the timing is terrible. It's just terrible. and
Yeah.
and and for one thing that's supposed to bring attention to, prison reform and these kind of things, and to that kind of cause and Kanye's cause for that, I have a feeling it's going to be kind of overshadowed and just over how their crowd control is, and just talking about Astroworld and the fact that Drake is performing. And I don't know if, the Larry Hoover is going to get his case is really going to get recognized as far as why the event is held, because it might be overshadowed by Astroworld
Or not. I mean, that was
or
kind of the
not.
point. That was the point earlier, right? So there's a lot of heat right now on Kylie, on the Kardashians, but we're still not really hearing a lot from Drake. But look, that might be the next
But that's what I'm
wave.
saying. Drake is
We'll
living
see what
his best
happens.
life. Like, Drake is
Yeah,
living his best life. I mean, he's named in these lawsuits. So like, it's not like he's just like we're talking about like I kind of feel like Kylie should just, kind of maybe just kind of slay low a little bit and, whatever. But I don't hold Kylie Jenner responsible for what happened at Astroworld. And I don't think anybody does. Like, you can get, guilt by association, and you are your friends friends that you hang out with, and that whole crew.
Right.
Like, when you're talking about, the peripheral damage from these other companies that have worked with Drake and have maybe been complicit with things, you are your crew. Everybody kind of knows what's going on. They're keeping quiet. Like, you might be able to hate on her for that or for whatever reasons, but she's not directly responsible. Now,
Right. Yeah, and
Drake
you
was
mean
on,
worked with, like, Drake and Travis, like, all those people in his camp or
right,
their camp.
right. But like, Drake was on stage. Drake is named in the lawsuit. Drake is, a part of
Yeah,
this,
in almost all these lawsuits, I think
and
other than
all
the
of these
first one
lawsuits,
that we
but
covered.
he is living his best life. He will not be slowed down for nothing. And but I mean, that just goes to show that Drake is obviously a bigger star than Travis Scott. You know
Well,
what I
I don't
mean?
know.
Like,
You look, there might be something to that, but guys, I think what's gonna happen is that right now we're talking so much about the collateral damage directly resulting from this event, the initial lawsuits that have been filed. I think we're up to 140 lawsuits, but within each lawsuit, there are sometimes 100 plaintiffs, dozens of plaintiffs, but it's about 140 as of right now. And as far as the next phase of what happens is there has to be an answer. So let's talk really fast about the attorneys who are now representing each of these defendants, and specifically the attorney for Travis Scott, and let's say the one for Drake. These are not cheap attorneys, and I was reading
right.
that one was estimated that the top firm is going to be charging $2,000 an hour. Now it doesn't mean that top attorney is going to be doing all the work, but a billable at 2,000 an hour, and then you have the paralegals billing at 300 an hour each. I mean, you're going to be in the millions and millions of dollars in
But they're
just
going to be earning their
legal
money.
fees.
These lawyers, these attorneys for, are going to be earning their money. Every attorney on that has anything to do with this case on either side is going to be earning their money because this
No,
thing is
and
out of
that's
control.
but that's how litigation goes. The attorneys bill and they get paid because they're working really hard, and usually there's nothing but losers by the end of it, but you hope that people
There's
can
lives on the line. There's
that
lives on the
yeah,
line for this thing. People's entire, it's
but
too much.
so let's talk about then the next phase is they have to answer and they have to give their position on what that is, right? And then beyond the answer, they're then going to go into a discovery phase. And one of the things that we always ask for, we're always going to be asking for communication. So guess what? They're going to be asking for all the information that's on Drake's phone,
Hmm.
on Travis Scott's phone. They want to see all the text messages and they want to see what they were saying to other people. And by law, each of these defendants are required to preserve that evidence. They're not supposed to go through and delete stuff and clear off pictures and this
What
and that.
if No, but what if it was already done before they got that order? What if right after the show he was like, psh, 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 psh. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah. And there's very severe consequences that can happen in the instance of a criminal investigation or if there's a civil lawsuit. And it's discovered that someone did that. And it's pretty serious. So,
yeah,
either
I
way,
guess that would be
once
evidence that you were definitely had some knowledge of it and were covering something up. No, I
yeah,
clear out my
and
text messages every Friday. It's just what I do. I don't like a lot of memory wasted on my phone. You understand?
Yeah, and look, to the extent that, I don't know that it will do anything other than maybe show more of a mindset, right, of what each person was kind of feeling and what they communicated and obviously I think during the show there's probably not going to be a lot that's relevant, but more of it's going to come out maybe before. What did they know? What were the communications? But then it goes to everyone who was involved, the actual operations people who were in charge of making sure that they had proper security and crowd control and medical, you know,
And cell phone service for those cell phones that needed to work when they didn't have enough walkie talkies or whatever it was.
yeah, and you better believe when we have litigation, we go in just like that. We're literally looking at every single email, every single text message, and it will be for a long period of time leading up to this entire, the entire time sequence leading up to this event. We need to know everything that was said, everything that was done, because it goes towards our claims of whether someone was negligent or grossly negligent.
And I'm waiting to see when some of these fans are also charged. Like I hope that does happen for like a lot of these kids that were disrupting. I'm talking about the kids that are jumping off the ambulances. I'm talking about the kids that were, there was a lot of fights and stuff that happened, and all this stuff is on video. Like it's on tape. These faces are all on tape. So I hope that, that these things are also looked into because I like to see people, held accountable because yes, the artists and stuff are responsible, but there was some people in there that were definitely troublemakers for sure in the crowd that did not
Yeah,
help
no.
things.
And I remember you talking about that in one of the previous videos, and guys, if you wanna see all of our coverage on this, I've gone through a complaint, we've shown tons of video, you know, from when this first happened to when a lot more videos started to get leaked, including the stuff with Drake. So if you wanna check out any of those other videos, I'll link our playlist down in the description below.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, for everyone out there that if when you're going to these concerts, just be way more mindful and just don't let this be like the new news cycle will come and kind of make you forget about this. As things are opening up and we're getting more shows, this Drake and Kanye concert. If you're, going to go to that thing, just be careful. Just everybody be careful and just be aware, of your fellow humans that are with you.
100%. I agree with that. Guys, we'll be back with more updates. Make sure you subscribe, like this video. It helps us to reach more people and to just continue the conversation. I appreciate you guys talking in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll see you guys on the next one. I'm top music attorney, Miss Krystle. Bye, guys.